Good evening, everyone, wherever you are joining us from this evening, as we start episode 3. So, tonight we are going to show you why most people don't even know who they are without the job title, their role, or their responsibilities. So, if we haven't met before, I'm Kay McCready, a resilience expert, trauma practitioner, speaker, 9-day breathwork facilitator, and dynamite delegate. And I work with people to build that inner strength in their body and in their mind so that they can create a life that they absolutely love living. And I'm here tonight with the amazing, always, Denise Keon. If you can just introduce yourself, Denise, are you all right?
Good evening, Kay. Hello, everybody. So, my name is Denise Keown, and I am a wellness expert. I specialize in homeopathy, kinesiology, anatomy, and all those words. What does all that mean? I help people to balance their bodies by looking at your body in totality. So, we look at the physical, mental, and emotional aspects of the body. And then from there, we can rebalance using a number of tools. So, natural remedies and different points on the body. I am also a dynamite delegate, as I believe that the mind is the most integral part of our entire body, because it really is the most powerful aspect of our body. So I suppose, yes, that's what I do. I support people on all levels with a number of modalities. So yes, that's what I do, Kay.
Thank you, Denise. Thanks for introducing yourself. And it's lovely to have you here again as well. Um,
Lovely to be here. Always,
so,
always lovely to be here, Kay.
I know. So last week we spoke about the mask and how so many people are just getting through the day on autopilot, where they're probably just saying that they're fine when underneath life actually feels very different to that. But I suppose what we didn't really get into last week is why that actually happens, because it's not just that people are wearing that mask all the time. It's actually, if that mask was to come off, most people don't even know who they are without it. And you see it everywhere, don't you? So we go into meetings, we go to networking events, we deliver workshops, all of the different things that we do. And what do? We go in and we introduce ourselves with our name, our job, our role, our title. And then I suppose if we take it a step further as well, we talk about our relationships. I'm a mum, I'm a partner, I'm a sister, I'm a wife. And although none of that, there's nothing wrong with any of that, but they're all just labels. And when you build your whole life around those labels, like I used to do, and I'm sure most of us have done, then you don't ever really stop to think who you are without those labels. So I just want to bring it straight into our listeners tonight for a second. And I want you to think about this properly, wherever you're watching us from. If you were to actually take all of those different hats off, like all of the labels that you wear, your name, your title, your relationship status, and just really ask yourself, without all of those labels, just get rid of them, take them all away. Ask yourself right now, who am I? Who am I? And let us know in the chat if you do know who you are, because what happens is when we don't know the answer to that question, fear always kicks in. We start to wonder who we are. We start to doubt ourselves, to doubt what life's all about. And, to wonder sometimes what the future actually holds for us. And this really is, for me, where resilience comes in, because if you have a sense of who you are, and that's, everything about you is just tied to everything outside of you, your role, your performance, what people expect from you, then every single bit of pressure that you face, every little challenge that comes along, every uncertainty is going to keep driving that fear. But when you have built that inner strength, and I'm talking about from the inside out, from actually going within, looking within, getting really curious, deepening your awareness and your understanding of how you operate and how you can work with your own operating system, then you can create a life that feels as good as it looks on the inside as it looks on the outside. And it's really interesting when you think about it, because we are all just going through life, doing our best, trying to achieve results, trying to keep everybody happy, trying to do all of the things, but most of us don't even know who we are. And what we both know, Denise, from the work that we've done with Kim Calvert, is that underneath all of those labels, at our core, we're all energy. You, me, everything is energy.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, what we've learned is that we are spiritual beings. We're living in this physical body, in a really physical world, but that operates by spiritual law. And that's so powerful to know. So Denise, when you really look at your own life,
Mm-hmm.
have you ever had any of those moments where you've thought to yourself, hang on a minute, like, who even am I? Who am I without the labels? Who am I without the mask? When you're not being everything for everybody else.
Okay, totally. So, I mean, I'll go back to that time in 2019 when I lost my hearing. I went from being, I was the mother and I was the provider and I was all those things, but I was, I had a title in a factory working. I was part of a team, and all of a sudden overnight that was gone, and it was like, who am I? So it was like, my job was gone. It was like, so what is my role now? What's my future? What does all this look like? And then I am a very positive person and very forward thinking, to be honest, but I also did have that moment of, Jesus, what am I going to be now? Or what do I identify as? I did, my armor, if you like, was stripped off me overnight. And then it was like, you felt vulnerable to the world, because it was like, well, who am I now? What's my part, or what's my role in this world? And I suppose for a long time, I was like, okay, what is my role? And I did go down a few rabbit holes, and maybe I'll do this and maybe I'll do that. But guys, it really was when I got my hearing back, I did very much sit with myself and go, right, I am going to do now what I have always wanted to do, not what anybody else wants me to do, not what society expects me to do, not what my family expects me to do, what I want to do, what fills me up and makes me happy. And whilst I did do that, to be honest, it wasn't until I really started working with Kim's material that I have really embraced and understood all of that. And now I do it the effortless way. There was parts of it that I would have, not forced per se, but I would have just done things still for the sake of doing a certain amount of people pleasing, and things, to that, oh, well, society says I must do. And now I don't do any of that at all. I very much, live by law. I look after my clients. I'm respectful to everyone. But I suppose I'm very aware. It's like what you said of the spiritual journey. We are all energy. And I very much, meet people where they're at. And some people, yes, you have that on both sides of the coin. You have the polarity, like, you have good and you have bad. But I will always meet people where they're at, regardless of, what they have to say to me or how it comes across, because I don't take it on internally now. I don't go, oh, why did that person speak to me like that? And I don't go into this whirlwind of, okay, why would somebody speak to me or treat me like that? Because I, inside, am happy and content in who I am. And I'm able to hold the space for anybody, no matter what's going on with them. Because what's presenting on the outside world for everybody is all coming from the inside. And, we talk about, why is that and where does that come from? I saw a number of clients today, And all of them have this, where it's the maintaining cause of, well, I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that, but everything they're doing is being driven by their senses, not by what they want to do inside. And I actually today asked 6 people, if I gave you a magic wand, what would you do with it? And they all said they would do, they all had their own journey of what they would do. And not one of them was doing what they wanted to do for themselves. So for me, that's why we're here tonight, guys, to raise the awareness on we are the creators of our own reality, and we can have whatever we want. We just have to choose that. And to realize that happiness comes from within here. It's not the materials, it's not the money. And yes, they're all byproducts of being happy, and we all want those things. It's not what makes you happy inside. So I suppose the one thing that I can really, say, and I guess really want people to understand is that happiness comes from within. Your health comes from within, and only us, we are responsible for all of that. Everything that shows up out here is coming from the inside of us. So we have control over that, and we can choose how we want that to be. Does that make sense, Kay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand what you're talking about with clients, because when I get people on discovery calls and ask them, what is it that you want? People don't really always know, because they don't know who they are. They think they have to be a particular person. They think they have to follow a particular journey. So yeah, I completely get that. And I suppose for me, probably, I probably did that for a long time in my life, never even questioned who I was. You just go along with how life is meant to be. But I suppose probably the first time that I really, really did stop and question everything, and in particular question who I was as a person, was when my 4-year-old son, Cameron, when he died. And at that time, in that moment, like over and over again, I questioned over and over, like, who even am I? What is my purpose here on this life? Like, what's life actually about for me? None of the roles, the labels, none of that mattered. Not the job. I had the big house, financially stable. Even my relationship, none of it mattered. Nothing at all. And hindsight's always a really good thing, isn't it? Because I always say, if I'd have known then what I know now, that that I'm energy, I'm a spiritual being in a physical world operating by spiritual law, then I wouldn't have suffered like I did. I wouldn't have lost 10 years of my life to mental health challenges. I would have chosen a completely different path, but I wasn't aware of who I was. I wasn't aware of how on earth I'd even gotten the results in my life up to that point, which were all awful, I have to say. And I sure as anything, didn't have a clue about goals. I've never had a goal. I didn't know how to create the goal or to create my future. I just truly believed that my life up until that point was just going to be full of suffering. And because I believe that resilience meant pulling your big girl pants up, getting on with it, pushing your emotions to one side, just get back up, keep going no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I did what most people do. And after my son died, I fell straight back into the roles, because that's all I knew. I went straight back into actually being who I needed to be in that moment to carry on, because that version of me was built on being able to cope, not on
survival mode.
Yeah, not on knowing myself at all. It was just pure survival mode. So, Denise, did you pretty much do what most of us were taught to when we were growing up? So, you go to school, get a decent education, get a good job, work hard, keep pushing, and you'll be successful.
Oh, yes, it was like get your education, you went to school, you worked hard, you know, I conformed to all those things like everybody else, you know. It's like get the pensionable job, you'll be safe for life. But you know, that no longer exists for me, in that I don't believe that anymore. And I suppose that came to me though from the whole, I burnt out because I had done that for so many years. I felt if I worked harder, you know, I'd get ahead, but I never once ever got ahead. I was working harder and harder and harder. At one point I had a 4-day job and still went to work 5 days a week because I thought I was getting ahead. I wasn't. It was in reverse. I was never getting that. I was never getting ahead because there's always going to be another email. There's always going to be, you know, another challenge. Or so I suppose the learning for me was, no, you have to actually really slow down to speed up. And now I'm the opposite. I tend to take, you know, an extra day off, you know, and I get more momentum. And people look at me go, so how does that work? I'm like, well, because you've pressed pause, you've pared it back. So rather than trying to do 100 things and getting nowhere, you get real clear. And, you know, that's the one thing I really have gotten from mentorship is get clear on what you want, be crystal clear. And then you're focused on really what are the 1, 2, 3 things you need to do, but you schedule them. There's more, you know, so you remove the chaos. And to say that it's been phenomenal is, well, phenomenal. It really is. Like, you know, my life has completely changed. I went from basically being the road runner 24/7 to someone who can press pause and literally move at a tortoise pace now if I want to, in that I'm still getting things done, but in a very structured, controlled way. And I suppose I'm utilizing all of my time in a very structured way. I'm not spinning my wheels, if you like, going, oh, I have to do this and oh, I have to do that. I'm actually taking the action and getting the task done in totality, rather than a bit of this and a bit of that and never actually completing anything. So I suppose it's really interesting in that respect, that by really looking at what I was doing on the outside was a complete reflection of what was really going on the inside. And once I changed that and realized, well, actually, it's okay to go slow. I don't always have to go at 100 miles an hour. And it was only when I really started working with Kim, I realized that. And the changes have just been phenomenal for my business, for my family, for my clients. You know, everything is I find it's more structured and balanced across the board. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is really interesting what you say, because most of us don't even like question what's happening in our lives. We just go along with it, don't we? You know, it's just who we think we are. We are this person, we're that person. You don't even realize it's happening, I suppose, until you go into mentorship. And you know,
you just didn't question either.
No.
As you were growing up. You just took it right. Well, that's what I'm told to do, and that's what everyone else around me seems to be doing. So you just kind of go with the flock because you don't know any different, you know.
Yeah, and I'd questioned my life like loads of times. You know, I'd asked myself over and over again, is this it? Is this what life is all about? You know, I'd had the boring jobs, I'd had relationships that didn't work out. I was always trying to fit into other people's molds. And, you know, I questioned so many times, like, what am I doing so wrong? But actually, I never really questioned anything on a deeper level, not in the way that I understand it now. I was just in victim mode, blaming myself. And I suppose it really showed up for me massively about 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I retired from the police. And, you know, up until that point, I knew who I was. Or at least I thought I did, you know. I was a police officer. I was a detective. I was the tough one, the one who could handle all the pressure, the one who other people relied on, you know, the one who just got things done no matter what happened. You know, but actually what happened was when I retired and all of those labels went, I did not have a clue who Kay McCready was. Because my identity for, I suppose, almost 32 years that I'd built my whole life around was just gone overnight. And it was actually probably a really awful time in my life, if I'm honest, because you realize very quickly that you've actually spent years being who you needed to be rather than actually who you are. And I really struggled. I did not know who I was. And, I've seen it so many times with other people who maybe like, people who I work with, high performers, driven professionals, people who look to everybody else like the world's perfect, they've got everything together, but actually their whole identity is built around being the successful one, being the one who delivers, who provides, the one who copes really well, the one who's strong, the one who holds everything together. And I get that, those things are strengths, but at what cost? Because if that's who you believe you are, then you're never going to give yourself permission to be anything other than that. And this is again where resilience links straight back in, because resilience isn't just about being able to keep getting back up, keep bouncing back. It's not about that. It's actually about knowing who you are at a really deep level without those labels, so that when life changes or things don't go to plan, which they might not do, you actually keep focused on you. You keep focused on your health. You keep focused on your well-being, your mindset, your inner strength. And I'd done all of that with my health, with my nutrition, my lifestyle. I've done all the nervous system work, but I suppose I still didn't really understand enough about the mind to create those real deeper changes in my life that I wanted until a couple of years ago. It was actually 2 years into my retirement that I found Kim Calvert and I started doing this work properly. And I know we've both spoken about, how we started going much deeper into understanding how we can actually create our own success in life, whatever that looks like for us. It's going to be different for everybody. But it was actually through taking those steps on Kim's path to achievement that I actually started looking at my life in a completely different way. And, for those people who might not know what the path to achievement is, that's actually a 12-week structured and facilitated program. And honestly, it's one of the most transformative things that I know we've both done. And that's not just in how we think, but the results that we're getting in our lives. And you know what Kim teaches us is that, because it just makes so much sense when you think about it, is that success is 95% mindset and only 5% strategy. And as we know, Denise, most people have got that completely the wrong way around. So those 12 steps in that path to achievement really do give you a solid foundation to actually really make those changes in how you think, how you see yourself, and ultimately, the results that you create in your life. So if anybody watching this wants to start living life on purpose rather than just reacting to what's in front of you, then that is where it starts. So you can either DM Denise or myself and let's have a conversation about what that could look like for you. So Denise, when people first step into the path to achievement, would you say that they have usually already stopped and maybe questioned things, or do you think they're just getting on with life because probably that's what they've always done?
I see it on two fronts. I see it where people are, yes, they've said, "Oh, I'm ready for change. Like I can't do this treadmill of life anymore. There has to be a different way." And then I also see the other side where people are quite driven and want to get results because they're not getting the results they want, but they haven't done the deeper work. They're looking at it from maybe a business perspective. But then ultimately, both types of people have gone through the same 12 steps, and they've grown even more than they ever imagined or thought, in because you up level on so many different ways, and it's in a robust way, and you'll look at things and go, gosh, I never looked at it like that. So it's amazing how you'll read one line and you'll be like, oh wow, and then that just like starts a cascade of things. It's like a domino effect, really. So then you'll have the business person come back in 12 weeks and be like, oh my God, not alone have I achieved my goals, but my relationships have improved and my own self-image has changed. Or equally, the person that really, really want change will have said, yes, I've gotten the change, but holy Moses, my business has also really, really evolved and changed. So it doesn't just impact one aspect of your life, it impacts all aspects, like from the communication with your friends and family to work, but then the results you get on the personal and professional level. And then as for the health, well, look, it's a no-brainer, because it brings so much clarity on all fronts that you start to realize that what you're doing is actually detrimental to your health. So then as you're going through the process, it transforms. It's just the way, it's just part of the process. So it's just absolutely phenomenal. So yes, I've seen both sides, and I suppose I would be quite a driven person when it comes to the work perspective. I suppose that would have been from my habits and beliefs that I had ingrained in me, and I suppose that identity that we spoke about, going at 100 miles an hour, pushing harder, you can do more and do more. And by going through the 12 weeks and the different steps, I realized actually I can press pause and do less and actually get even better results and have even better relationships. So it is just absolutely amazing. Would you agree though, Kay?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and I know we see each other every week. Well, we see each other multiple times a week, and we know how. I know, aren't we lucky? But we know how impactful this work is. We know how much it's changed our lives in just a short period of time. I mean, I've been with Kim 2 years now, and honestly, the transformation in not only my business, but me as an individual has just been absolutely phenomenal, because we've got to look at it and think, well, it isn't our fault. It's not our fault that we are where we're at, because most of us don't even have any awareness at all about mindset. Or if we do, we might have the surface level stuff. We might have done like loads of courses. We might have been on different programs. We've done the affirmations, all those types of things. But actually, there's more to it than that. There's way more to it. There are structured steps. There is a path, and it's a clear path. And we don't know that, most people, because we've just been conditioned by society, by our parents, our environment. And like I said, people don't even think about it until something massive normally happens in their life, which, it did for me. Let's be honest, I lost my son. That was the first time it impacted me. The second time was, when I retired. But normally what happens is people either get ill or something big happens, or they get that wake-up call. But we know that resilience isn't about waiting for those big things to happen. We understand that because we're doing the work, because it's actually about, looking at your life before you get to that point. It's not about waiting for that to happen. If you do the work before those things happen, and I think that's what we both realised through doing the 12 steps on the path to achievement, that you don't have to just live out what's been handed to you by your parents or society. We can actually just step back and we can look at our lives completely different, and we can choose something different for our future, because everybody has got way more potential than they're actually using. We know we are unlimited potential, but we have been limited by conditioning, by society. But that potential is already in me, it's in you, it's in every single person who's watching this live. It's just been covered over by years of conditioning, years of habits, years of thinking. And once you start to see that, we know that everything changes. And that's because then you can actually go within, you can stop reacting to life, and you can actually start creating it.
You can literally take the reins of your own life and go anywhere you want.
Yeah.
It is so powerful. And that's what Kim would say to us in a week, you know, we are the creators of our own reality. And I suppose that was something that really hit me like a dull moment. It was like, wow. So it's like I can actually control what I want to do. It's just, you know, harnessing that and, you know, working through the steps. It is actually so phenomenal and powerful. And I go back to it all the time. You know, I just really love, you know, checking in and reviewing the different paths, the different tasks and methods, because, you know, you always take something new from them. Even though I've done them, I will still learn. You're always growing. Our awareness is always increasing. And, you know, Kay touched on it there. We don't know what we don't know. And every time we go over something, it's a bit like when you read a book. Every time you read the book, you take something new from it. And the same applies to this. And the one thing I would really like to reiterate is that this is not just for, you know, people often say to me, oh, mindset coaching, that's just for people in business. It's not. It's for absolutely everybody, because everybody needs to have a goal. Everybody has health. Everybody has their own journey. So absolutely everybody needs this material, from kids right up to all of us adults. It's not just for people who are in business.
Yeah.
It's for everybody. We all need this.
And I think the really important thing is that the steps are repeatable. Like, it's not just a one-off process. The steps are repeatable over and over again, as many times as you want in as many areas of your life. So I suppose just a couple of little takeaways from tonight before we finish. If you have realized during this that you have been walking around as your job title all week, then that's your first clue. You know, if you're the strong one who never asks for help, then maybe just notice that. And if you've been nodding along thinking, yeah, this is me, as we've been talking, but you're already planning tomorrow in your head, then that's your autopilot right there. So after this live finishes, please just take a minute and ask yourself this question: who am I really? Who am I really, without the labels? And let us know, wherever you're following us along at, let us know. And I suppose as we bring this episode to a close tonight, Denise, people have got two options really after this, haven't they? They can either, you know, just finish watching this live stream and then go and carry on exactly as they were, or they can actually do something different
to get different results.
Yeah, and if they're ready for that, come and have a conversation with Denise or I, and let's have a proper look at your life and where you want it to go. And, you know, please don't keep this live series to yourself, because you will all know somebody who's constantly wearing that mask, saying they're fine, but clearly they're not. Just tag them in it, wherever you're watching from. Send this to them or invite them along to next week's session, because the chances are they will need to hear this. So we're back again next Monday, Denise, aren't we? 7:30, same place, with another real conversation. But remember, don't wait for life to force you to change. You decide to change it. Thank you so much, Denise, as always.
Thank you, Kay. It was great, as always. Thanks to everyone who tuned in.
Take care, and we'll see you next week.